joined today by Rahaf Harfoush. Rahaf, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Listen, every day's a good day. Um, it's always my favourite question when I'm speaking to someone who could be described in many, many different ways, and kind of how do you introduce yourself?
Okay, so I guess the simplest way would be that I am a digital anthropologist, which means that I'm very interested in the intersection of technology and culture and how they influence each other. So, how do the technological tools that we use create our culture? And then, how do we bring our culture into the technological tools? And how that
Mm,
impacts all the most interesting aspects of human life, how we work, how we form relationships, how we hang out, how we read, how we travel. So that is sort of the heart of the questions I'm trying to answer. And then I answer them through a variety of different vehicles, whether it's keynoting or writing books or doing consulting or doing executive
right.
coaching. But the core question is always the same.
So let me take you way back to when you were a wee one. Was it tech or was it culture you were interested in first, or was it just the rise of these two things and how they work together?
I think it was really the rise of the two things because when I really started getting into it, it was
Mm,
when blogging was just starting to become a thing, and it felt like at the time that all of a sudden you had access to people's like private journals and they were sharing all of these things, and it was absolutely fascinating to me that we were using this technology to read the private thoughts of somebody who was half a world away. I know it sounds very normal now, but back then it was something that was quite different and quite new. And I was watching how people were using these technologies to collaborate, to interact with each other, to create new things, to change the way we approached everything. And so that was the curiosity. I mean, I'm fundamentally obsessed with people and obsessed with culture and obsessed with our society, the good, the bad, the weird. But the
yeah.
technology is also in and of itself so fascinating. So it was the perfect mix of the two.
And kind of where are we now? And I'm not time stamping or anything, but kind of coming out of the pandemic and everything gone on. And we are just talking just off camera beforehand about the rate of change. Is it going too quick, kind of, for someone who's looking at how we as a culture are looking at technology, or is it still something you can measure and be analysing? Or by the time you've analysed it, have we moved on to something else?
I mean, I think what's interesting is now we're at this point where we have exponential technologies, right? So these are technologies that don't just improve incrementally bit by
Mm.
bit. These are technologies that between one version and the second version have almost like quadrupled in value and processing power and capabilities. And so that level of change we haven't really seen before at the speed that we're watching it unfold. And what's interesting to me is because I'm so interested in people, I always have to remind my clients that we have very, very new technologies that are being evaluated and absorbed and influencing very old bodies. Our biology is hundreds of thousands of years old. And so, in a way, human beings were not really built for scale. We were not built to withstand the tragedies of the world, everyone's thoughts on everything. Like we were just not built that way. And so I do think that change is happening so much faster. And the more interesting question to me is, okay, well, how
Mm.
then do you anchor yourself in this? How do you
Mm.
develop expertise? How do you develop what I call a personal knowledge management practice in figuring out how you build ideas and find connections and gain inspiration without getting overwhelmed, exhausted, drained, or lost in the commotion?
So can I ask? And it's been fascinating to me, kind of AI everywhere currently right now, but kind of to some extent, AI in the tech world has been talked about for many, many years beforehand. In terms of what you've just said, does that mean actually we are anchoring ourselves by kind of ignoring for a while until we can't ignore it anymore? Is
It's
that
not
our
that
defense
we're
mechanism?
it's not that we're ignoring it. It's that the technology is creeping into domains that were traditionally considered quite human. So a way to think about it is, we have this big technology boom in the sort of manufacturing blue collar industry, right? So all of a sudden we had machines and assembly lines, machines to do all of this manual labor, and that
Mm.
created a lot of disruption. Now we're entering into the era of automated creativity, where those same technologies are coming in, but they are doing things like creating music, creating art, creating poetry, creating knowledge, creating expertise. And these are all activities that not only have always been fundamentally human, but have been activities and disciplines that are highly associated with our own identity, right? How we think, what we create, what we make. And so what's happening now is that we are being forced to ask ourselves some very complicated questions, such as, what makes something a work of art? What
Mm.
makes something creative? What is an idea? How do we evaluate what is an idea? So for example, if I create using artificial intelligence a painting, that's a work of art. What makes it a work of art? Is it my vision that I was able to use technology to bring into life? Or historically, has it been that part of what makes it a work of art is the fact that I would have had to study for years to
Mm.
develop the technical mastery of the brushstrokes? So we're fundamentally suddenly re-examining beliefs that we've held about what makes something creative, what makes something a work of art, what is creativity. Technology is forcing us to just like re-examine those rules and is introducing new rules to this game. And that's why I think it's been so polarizing for so many people.
And do you think, kind of from your perspective, in terms of knowing how, well, knowing, kind of having an idea as to how we do react and work with the stuff, are we going to find answers, or is it going to be something which does continue to polarize for quite a long time?
I think it's we are going to find answers, but I think again historically human beings as a storytelling species, we have
Mm.
always loved narratives that were quite simple, right? We want to know, is something friend or foe? Is it good or bad? Is it hero or is it villain? And if you think about the way we tell myths to each other, that is the narrative, right? There's always a good guy and a bad guy. The issue now is that a lot of this technology is simultaneously the hero and the villain. It is creating a lot of opportunities and it's helping a lot of people. For example, helping diagnose cancer, helping come up with new medications, helping spot problems before they arise, helping save people. But by the exact same token, right on the other side of that coin is that same technology is also being used with biases. It's being used to exploit people. It's being used in negative and harmful and dangerous ways. The issue
Mm.
is that it's both. You cannot separate it. So we are finding answers, but those answers are a lot harder to kind of apply. What do you do if, as a leader, you have to know that every technology that you bring inside your organization to help collaboration, productivity, creativity could also, that same tool could also create a lot of harm. So what's
Mm.
really needed is that we need to update the frameworks with which we evaluate the complexities and how we make decisions about these really ambiguous issues.
One last question for you: do you still get surprised by how the humans act and kind of how we respond to stuff, or are you in a place now where it's like, okay, yes, we were as a species going to react that way because of historical?
I
Um,
mean, I sort of, our species is so flawed. I am a tech dualist, meaning I believe that we are awesome and we are terrible in equal measure. And if you look at the world, there's always people doing terrible things and always people doing really great things, people that exploit and people that help, right? And so when you
mm,
look at that, our technology is a reflection of that. So every time anything happens, I fully expect there to be people that are going to use that technology to benefit others in an empathetic and a collective way, and people
yeah.
that are going to use it to exploit and to harm others. And so it doesn't really surprise me anymore. I'm usually very amused, but once you recognize that like we as a species are quite flawed and our technology is going to have those same flaws, you tend to look at all of the technology as a mere reflection of the best and worst aspects of ourselves amplified.
Rahaf, on that note, which is truly fascinating. Thanks so much indeed for your time. Been a pleasure speaking.
Thank you.